Hey folks, it's Blammo. I'm Jeremy Kirkland. Look at that, a big ol' happy intro. It's a little late, but I'm here. I'm back from New York. Just got back, literally like, I don't know, fast enough to get on this mic. It was I will say to kind of summarize real quick, because I bet someone's like, how was your trip? Maybe you're saying that, maybe you're not. Maybe you just want to get to Alynda's episode. I get it. We'll get there. But this was probably the most productive, busy trip ever. Like every time I'm there, I try to see a few folks. I try to get some downtime. And this time there was no downtime. We were filming a new shop talk for J. Crew. You can put things together, but I was excited because I made a lot of jokes from Step Brothers about Derek. So you can put that together. It was fun. Nicest person in the world. I recorded 4 pods. We had dinners. All these things that just kind of had me all over the place. But I'm grateful to be back in good old St. Louis. Look, by the way, speaking of that, because some of you have really thought that I dog on St. Louis too much. Yeah, I'm talking specifically to the person that gave me feedback, because I got some listener feedback, and they're like, man, you're too hard on St. Louis. And let me just dive into that. Let me say this. I love St. Louis. I live here by choice. I love living here, but like anyone who loves something, I hold it to a high standard. It's a standard that I want to improve, and I'm doing my best to do it. So, I mean, there's not a ton to explain, but like, dude, I make fun of everything. I mean, I make fun of myself, but this is not me just trying to say that like, I'm going to save the town, because the town doesn't need saving, but I'm doing my part. I will say that, the style and the clothes of everyone that in St. Louis has, there are swaggy people here, but we're all doing our best. We're all improving. Okay. Food is great. The parks are great. And yeah. The zoo is free. So I still love to have fun with this place the same way I did in New York. Speaking of love, you can find me diving into the new LP from my guest this week, Alynda Segarra from Hurray for the Riff, Raff. We chat about their new album, The Past is Still Alive, getting fits off on the road, too many voice notes, entering the tailored era, the big dope style of Fran Lebowitz, Andre 3000, vibe music, leaning on stressed, oversized Western wear, good smelling candles, and The Clash. It's Alynda Segarra. We're back with a new Blammo. Let's go. Congratulations on the album. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm really excited about it.
It's like, wait, before we dive in, who is that? The Ronettes behind you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, my queens.
Yeah?
R.I.P. Ronnie.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The original bad girl. I've been really debating getting a tattoo of her on my arm.
That's a good idea.
Everyone's going to think it's Amy Winehouse, which is like, who I also adore.
Yeah.
But I think it would just like make me mad.
Yeah. You'd have to get her name on it too.
Yeah. Oh my God. Ronnie in script would look really great.
Mm-hmm. You got a lot of ink, right?
I do. I guess, depending. It's like, I don't have like sleeves. My best friend is a tattoo artist.
Oh.
In New Orleans. So it's just like, I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I can text him and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, a friend of mine, he used to give himself tattoos, and he was buddies with a tattoo artist, and they would get he'd get all sorts of stuff on him, which would just be like, some I imagine he regretted, but I don't know. Yeah. I have this thing with tattoos that I have to want it for basically 2 years before I get it, and nothing has met after a year. I revisit it. I'm like, do I still want this thing? And it's nothing's cleared it. And so I don't know. I want to get a sleeve. I want to get totally inked up.
Cool.
But I can't get past one little thing I have, and that's it.
I've kind of noticed, I think like younger people aren't getting tattoos.
Yeah.
As much.
Okay.
That's what I'm kind of noticing. I feel like it's now like rebellious to be like totally bare.
That, what, I agree with that. I think there's a weird sort of, I don't know if it's a Gen Z, whatever thing of this kind of like averse to things that were somewhat rebellious in the past. Like, yeah, get some ink, get whatever you're going to do. And now it's like, it'd be really cool to just conform and to just, and you're like, well, is it? I don't know. But yeah, the TikTokification, if that's even a word, of, even music now, like to talk about that, where people will blow up from songs on TikTok or
a nightmare.
Yeah, it's interesting, the timing of this conversation, especially with the news yesterday of GQ absorbing Pitchfork. And we can talk a little bit about it because I am very curious, because you posted some stuff.
It's a sign of the times. It really is. It's like, it's really scary for me because it's like, I don't know. I mean, more and more, I just see musicians being terrified of like, well, how do I stay outspoken? How do I like stay independently minded, or just like my messy self, while also like having corporate overlords in a way that we just like had some freedom from. Mm-hmm. Like I've been it'll be 10 years since I did my first album on a label. And even just since 2014, things are so different. Like that was before Spotify. That was before Apple Music. That was, I was selling like a lot of CDs, like.
Yeah. Well, that
and
is coming back.
And it makes you more independent. Really? I hope so.
Well, I mean, I think physical media is coming back in the sense, one, people are buying records and not listening to it. The fact that I read something yesterday, and it was like one of every 12 LPs that were sold last year was a Taylor Swift album. Wow. Yeah. And you're like, well, wait, how many people are listening to vinyl? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Like, I mean, I have records over here, but I have not had a working record player. I don't know.
I just got mine set up like last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
it's really, I'm really happy to be back on it. It feels way more like I just enjoy the experience more. But yeah, I definitely have noticed. I mean, I think also music fans are now really making the relationship of like, if I buy a record from you at the show, I'm like actually helping you live, because musicians are just becoming more open about the realities. And so I think people are just kind of buying it, being like, sure, why not? I'll put money in your gas tank, basically,
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's this, unspoken sort of relationship in how people view their relationship with musicians, right? Where Bandcamp, it would be like, oh, I only buy my music on Fridays and I buy it through Bandcamp because I want to support these artists. But then like there are some people who are like, wow, this person just got this deal with whatever, whether it's like a fashion brand or a song in a commercial. And they're like, maybe it's fine if I just rip their music off or something. Because to where it's like, I mean, I wrestle with this as a podcaster, because it's kind of like, I'm just kind of this middle ground sort of thing. And a friend of mine who runs a business is like, he always would say like, people want you to do well, but never better than them. And so
ouch, it's so true. So that's like, really true.
Yeah. And by the way, I assume everyone has good and pure intention. So I'm not saying it to just like shit on people. Yeah. But like, it's interesting with musicians too, to where all of a sudden someone's posting an Instagram from a tour bus and someone's like, oh, life must be pretty good. And you're like, no, I'm going into debt on this tour.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, I'm not in a tour bus, but I definitely notice friends who are, and I'm like, I want to be like, can I see your budgets? Like, are you coming out like 30K in the hole and that's just okay? Yeah. Or, but I have noticed like other people have like really great merch game. It's like, it's a part of the job that's becoming more and more important to like be a part of the conversation, and, for me, I really struggle with like, I have a hyperactive mind in that way where I'm just always worried about survival and like making it a smart investment. And I'm really trying to learn like, how do I balance that with also like protecting my creative time and like protecting the time that I can just like be a artist or a writer and not be like crunching numbers, you know?
Like, does that affect your songwriting?
So I'd like to think so far it hasn't, but it's affected like, well, I guess everything affects the songwriting. It's definitely affected like my quality of life. I feel like I'm finally in a better place, but like my last record cycle was rough and it affected like my mental health for sure. It was just like, also getting back out on the road after COVID, like it was just really the first time I had a feeling of like, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm scared because I don't know how to do anything else. And I'm pretty sure this is what I'm supposed to do, like with my life.
Mm-hmm.
So it scared me. But so far for me, it's been a lot about perspective and being like, okay, what are my actual goals? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what is like my spirit want? And that also balances with here on this physical plane needing, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
I think like for me, I need to make sure I have a lot of like mental space to like learn how to balance the two worlds.
Yeah. I mean, because I know that's got to be a challenge, especially, you know, a friend of mine's a musician and, you know, I won't name their name, but like when they write music, they basically are like, I need to make sure that when I'm writing this, I can perform it just as good live. Versus some people would say, or like, whatever, I'm using every tool at my disposal and then we'll just figure it out when we need to tour.
Totally.
You know, and I think there's always that interesting sort of, you know, because it sounds like, I mean, I've listened to your record a lot. And I mean, it sounds like it's something that seems that you can nail live pretty well, right? Are you going to be touring with a band?
Yeah, it'll be the same, like same setup as my last record.
Mm-hmm.
But this one feels really good for many reasons, but for that reason specifically is like, I feel like live, it's just like me being myself and not really having to depend on a lot of like production stuff or, you know, like gear or stuff that really boggles my mind and is not what I'm good at.
Right.
It feels like just like basics. Like I believe in these songs. I could play them by myself or I could play them with this great band. And we're going to have a night together where we just like share space. It feels way more like sustainable, you know, for me.
Yeah.
But I also like being, like ambitious and I like being like, this kind of scares me. Life on Earth as a record, like scared me. And I was like, I don't know, I guess we'll just figure it out. But this one feels a little bit just more confident going out in the world with.
I mean, there's a few tracks that I listened to specifically because I want to pull up my notes. Colossus of Rhodes.
Yeah, that's my baby. I
got pretty emotional listening to it. Like I'm very much a headphone, you know, music listener. And so like, I don't know, I was like getting emotional and I was like, I got to talk Colossus of Rhodes. Like this feels like a heavier album compared to other stuff, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a heavy like time in my life and a heavy time in the world, you know. But my writing just got coming out of that really difficult period of like the last couple of years for me of just feeling very lost and very scared about my future. And really, really in just suffering from this feeling of like, this is what I love to do. And yet I'm starting to really hate the process of it. And I'm starting to feel like I wasn't built for it because the rules keep changing, you know? And I think I took solace in my writing in a way that was really important for me.
Yeah. Like where did you compose most of this in New Orleans?
You know, a lot of it actually I wrote on the road for the first time. I normally can't write on tour, but we spent a lot of time on tour with Bright Eyes in 2022.
Okay.
Opening up for them on multiple runs. Mm-hmm. And it gave me all this time. When you're the opening act, it's like pretty great gig.
Yeah.
You know, you get to like play 30 minutes and it's early and then you get all this time and you get to watch this like amazing band. And so it gave me a lot of time and also to be able to like listen to Connor's lyrics every night. It really was an important time for me.
When you're writing music, what's your process like? Is it, you know, voice notes and guitar chords, or you just writing lyrics and then you try to make up melodies from it, or what?
A lot of voice notes. Yeah. My phone is like full, like hundreds.
Really?
Yeah. And also, yeah, a lot. And then also I'll be like making up chords, even though they're obviously will be something, but I don't know what it is. So then I'll have to like do a voice note that's like, this is what you're doing on the guitar because you're not going to remember, but a lot of voice notes. But Colossus was one of the few songs that I've written where I just sat down. It was like, whoa. And it just came out like all in one go.
Really?
Which is why there's like not really a chorus. There's like no bridge, there's no form.
Oh, I don't even think I realized that.
I've really started to just love songwriting like that. I'm like, we don't really need this anymore. Anything is a song now. So it's been really nice to just like ride the wave and not have to worry about this like structure and form.
So I'm like a big Beatles dork, like most people.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Seeing how a lot of their writing, specifically Paul and John, was the sort of like verse, chorus, verse 2, chorus, middle 8, double chorus, like very formulaic. It makes me wonder what sort of, even when they were like, messing around with drugs and doing all sorts of other weird stuff, like why are we so glued to this format? Like what is it about that format that people feel like they always have to be, because in most cases, and this is from previous like McCartney stuff, he was like, oh, well, we had to have these songs within this time so we could get played on the radio. And he was like, so you basically wrote songs to play for radio. And now the Andre 3000 record, right? There's music on there, but it's like, because of how we're also experiencing music now, which I have it on while I'm working, or I have it on while I'm, so like, you don't have this, I would be shocked if Andre 3000 was like, oh yeah, I needed a middle 8 for this song. It's like, I just was playing around on this piano. And so like, I'm always like wondering like, what are the, if there are no rules anymore, like what are the people trying to do to create their art? Like what is I don't know.
I think a lot of people are making like vibe music, which is like good, like do your thing. But it's funny because for me, being so lyrically driven, it's like, for me, my goal is definitely not to like write a song that people like tune out.
I agree.
And not even tune out. Like there's a lot of songs that like Andre's record, it's like you can meditate to it, but it's like my whole thing is lyrics and like taking you on a story and like capturing your attention and taking you somewhere. So I get nervous about the culture we're in, where I'm just like, I think the goal is to be in the background. And like, that's not, I don't really know how to write like that, Yeah. So, so that has been on my mind lately.
Well, because even how your stuff's mixed, your vocals are front and center, to where I don't think there was, so like they sent me the lyrics of but I'm like, I didn't need to pull them up. Yeah. There was no issue of trying to understand what you were saying, which also, I was curious about how much is grief like interject itself into your writing?
I mean, this record, it's all there, which is interesting because, like it's become like, now people know that I recorded this a month after my dad passed away. He passed away very suddenly. And I had already had most of the record written, but, going into the studio, it was like a lot of these reflective songs suddenly had new meaning, suddenly carried like a much different weight. I wrote Snake Plant first out of all the batch of songs. And that has like the whole first verse are like references to me and my dad, like spending summers together. And just little lyrics here and there. I don't know. I think what was interesting for me with The Past Is Still Alive is my older records, I saw myself as a witness to a lot of grief and a person who, I'm in community with people that have experienced a lot of grief. So I'd write a song about it, or I'd write a song about a tragedy that happened in my world or someone that we lost. And it was always like, oh, I'm kind of this doula, or I'm like helping people carry this weight that is very burdensome for them. And I feel strong enough to carry it, and help them balance it. And now for this record, it was like, can you guys carry some of this for me? Because it felt very, for the first time, like this is all me. There isn't any distance or witnessing. It's like, I'm deep in it,
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm probably very sensitive to that stuff right now. Like, so, my dad is in the process of like kind of passing. I just lost my grandfather, like 2 weeks ago, very suddenly. And like, I think,
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's, but it was there, I think, more things that I'm listening to, engaging with, paying attention to. it's almost like I'm like extra sensitive by it. But I had heard some of your stuff. I mean, because for listeners, I mean, you've been making music for a long time. This isn't like your first.
A long time.
Yeah, this isn't your first go around, and but it's interesting saying that, like, how you were, some of the earlier stuff was you're just channeling other people versus this was more yourself. Because I don't know, as I was listening to this, I was like, it was just heavy for me. Specifically, what was the third track?
Hawk Moon.
Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know. And here's the thing, that could also totally be about something completely unrelated, where you're like, actually, no, that's about a soda can or something, or it's like,
yeah.
But I often wonder when any artist, when you think of like painters or any sort of stuff, they make something, it's their own idea. But then like when it's released to the world, these people create their own memories and their own experiences of who they are and what they were when they experienced it, right? When you see someone looking at like Rothko, no one's like, man, I wonder what his financial state was when he made this. But it's just like, this is these colors. What do these colors mean? What do they say to me? And I feel more than ever, I've really been having that sort of relationship with all the music I listen to. So much that I've actually kind of tuned out anything that I didn't feel was like challenging me or speaking to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I only want like heavy things that can help me process stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Grief has its gifts. Yeah. It's really, I've really learned that it'll be a year in February that I've lost my dad, and grief, as difficult as it's been, it's also given me some gifts in that way of like perception shifting, things becoming like laser focused and so clear. All of a sudden, just like, oh, I definitely don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. I'm not going to do that. And then where before it might be cloudy, and just leaning way more towards art and like a way to spend my time that feels a lot more like life affirming. And even if it's challenging, like you're saying, like it feels like living,
Yeah.
That's what's been happening for me. Can you
give me an example of like how this has kind of made you evolve?
I guess a lot of the ways that I spend my time, I'm a very, I'm a New Yorker, so I can be very neurotic. And I feel like I was just definitely, my mind is more like hyper productive and very easily stressed, or like I lean towards stress and worrying about the future and worrying about my survival and stuff. And I think it's just become a lot clearer of like quality of time, and of course, like with my work and with writing and with traveling, being like, I think I have to learn how to enjoy this, or else I'm going to have to do something else because I want to enjoy my life. That's been a major shift in just like my perception.
Yeah, I don't think I ever take time to, it sounds so tacky. This isn't the right phrase, but like to like live in the moment, or, like so much totally. Of any good thing that ever happens to me, I'll always question it. And I'm like, well, see, I didn't really deserve that because this and this happened. So basically these people felt sorry for me, and that's why this was going on. So let me just move on. And then like I'm this constant ball of anxiety with, financial things to, children. I'm always like, man, climate change and the politics are going on. Like, what are my kids going to do? I'm like, oh my God, what are they, and then a part of me is like, but they're fine right now. They slept good last night. They're in their bed.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then when I try to enjoy that time, and I say this because I'm curious how you feel, where like, I'm like, okay, is it fair for me to be calm and enjoy this time when I know other people aren't, when you think about what's going on, Gaza and stuff like that. And so it's like, well, can I even like project this, that I'm okay and that I'm happy when I know other people are suffering? And I feel like that's, which is why I kind of end up just putting headphones on and listening to music. Cause I have to have someone else communicate these things for me.
Yeah. It's extremely confusing considering that like for the first time in our lifetimes, like now we're all broadcasting our lives. Everyone is. So it's like, of course we're confused. We're like, I'm happy. Is that bad? Am I hurting anyone? I'm having a good day. Like,
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference. I'm at a place where I'm like, there's a difference between like, we all deserve to enjoy our lives. Like they're not going to last forever. And there's a difference between that and just like taking a lot, taking and not giving, or taking and not caring about other people or like the future of our world, you know? I personally really don't think that I don't think it's necessary to care to like suffer in order to like be a good person and like care and be engaged in our world. I think that more and more I'm leaning towards having deep relationship with people around me.
Yeah.
And like really just and trying to be as present as I can. I feel like it just makes me like a less harmful human in the world, you know?
Right.
I had this experience, like I don't do any drugs, but like it was like closest thing I had to like a psychedelic experience.
Okay.
Where I was at this festival called Pickathon outside of Portland. And it's a really cool festival and it's like very far out and people play at like 2 a.m. It's kind of like European in that way.
Oh, wow.
And it's a lot of like avant-garde jazz and like current jazz, like legends and stuff. And I was watching Sons of Kemet play, who I never heard of until that festival. And they were just like mind blowing. And I had this really intense experience where I was like, these people have dedicated so much time to learning music and to digesting it and so they can express through it. And I was just like really struck by, wow, that is such a peaceful way to be a human on the planet, because other humans like spend their time figuring out how to like export or like, extract resources and like destroy stuff. And it struck me that I was like, this is a really beautiful way to be a human. Like they're spending all this time, this band is spending their time dedicating to this practice and this craft. And I was like, that's a huge choice. That's a lot of time, like it could go a different way. So, I don't know. I've been like thinking back on that moment a lot and being like, I think we also need to be easier on ourselves of like, not being harmful is really important.
Yeah. Wait a second. I got to get my bids in on the Bezel app, but more on that in a minute. I get all sorts of emails and questions from you all, which I love to read and respond. And one thing I constantly get, and even read in the Blamo Slack, is what watch should I buy and where should I get it? It's a wild world out there with all sorts of websites and shops, but I go to Bezel. Bezel is the trusted marketplace for buying and selling your next luxury watch with expert in-house authentication on every purchase. First off, folks, it's getbezel.com. That's getbezel.com. But I use and recommend Bezel because it's the best of both worlds. You can go to the site and browse a marketplace of luxury watches, over 16,000 of them, by the way, which is a lot. And I know that Bezel is going to authenticate your purchase. Or you can create an account and get connected with your own private client advisor, called the concierge. Because look, making a watch purchase can be confusing, especially when you don't know all the reference numbers. When was this made? Did they use ceramic then? Is it a triple lop, dingle top? What the heck? I don't even know. But they do at Bezel, and they're here to help. Concierge, baby. Look, if looking for your watch to mark a special occasion, or maybe you're just doing research, right? They even have their own journal where you can learn all the ins and outs about Bezel and the brands and all the stuff that's happening right now. But back to my bids. Yes, Bezel now has auctions, and not just any auctions. They got Rolex, they got Cartier, they got Audemars Piguet, all the big dogs and more. So you can discover, bid, and know the Bezel team has got your back with verified in-house authentication. So visit getbezel.com on your smartphone or computer. Bezel, the trusted marketplace for buying or selling your next luxury watch. I mean, trying to find more ways to just, like be grateful for the art that's out there, where I feel like this is a thing, especially now in music in general, to where and this is maybe the only pro of streaming services for me, is all of a sudden I'm listening to, for Hurray for the Riff Raff, or I'm listening to, Bach, and I get to have the same emotion attached at the same time. Like I don't have to like change how I'm, viewing and experimenting with this stuff, where there's, I get to listen to you at the same time as I'm like understanding Mozart all of a sudden.
Wow, cool.
And it's like this weird appreciation that you get, where a part of me is like why did it take me so long to get more into jazz, or to get more into classical, or to get more into these things? Because you hear these like beautiful chord progressions and these harmonies and all these things that you recognize, when people think of like Blackbird, right? Like that was, I think it's a Bach,
Whoa, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, McCartney has talked about it too, where he's like, oh, like there was this, it was Bach or someone's going to correct me or whatever. But he's like, we would do this exercise and then we started changing it. And then, he's like, so we would do, and then Blackbird came from this. But you're like, oh, all this stuff kind of complements itself. And you get these moments of viewing these people that are just like making their art and enjoying it. And it kind of helps me when, you're like, what did I do today? Well, I made some kids breakfast and I loaded a dishwasher.
But at the same time, like, that's like a beautiful thing,
Sure,
like,
yeah, dishwashers are great.
Making children breakfast. It's like they're the future,
Yeah, we'll see. I'll let you know if these kids are the future. They're fine. They do like to dance, but it's funny because my daughter loves the music of Gabby's Dollhouse, which is this kids show on Netflix. Okay. It's actually a really good show. I mean, there's a lot of trash TV for kids. I want to be very clear. There's so much garbage. But
I had it good, I feel like.
I think, we
I had
did.
Hey Arnold, like.
Okay, so you had the Nicktoons. I think we're around the same age. I'm 38, but like.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like watching things like Doug and Mr. Rogers.
And the Beats.
The Beats. I need more allowance.
I think about Killer Tofu.
Yeah.
I like sing I need more allowance often.
Yeah. I sing that a lot. It's also funny, like to jump on the clothes stuff, where you're seeing a lot of people from that era are obviously now of the age where they're further in their careers. And so you're witnessing people that like loved Nicktoons designing clothing collections now. When people are like, oh yeah, this had a very Doug funny moment down the runway, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Hilarious.
You kind of embody the at least on this album, you have a lot of sort of Western vibes on it.
Yeah.
And did you watch Pharrell's recent Louis Vuitton collection that was like the other day?
I didn't.
Well, it's all cowboy. It's all Western. It's all cowboy, cowgirl,
see that.
Whatever. Yeah, it's all in there. And yeah, I'm curious about that, because I feel like when you were like getting into Western stuff, like how intentional is this? Or is this just like, I found a cowboy hat?
It's funny because I've been like steering away from like the like very strict Americana genre for a while. But with this record, I like wanted to just like play again, and I felt like I had done enough exploring and like kind of like proving myself to be interested in all sorts of genres and things. Mm-hmm. And that I felt like I was comfortable enough with like bringing in those elements. But really what I was mostly obsessing over was like James Dean in a cowboy hat. I was really obsessing over like, I forget the name of the movie that he was in, but I had like all of these kind of behind the scenes photos.
That's probably what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Of him like learning to lasso and like, stuff like that. So I was really in the mood board that I sent to Tommy, the photographer, for like this album. It was a lot of that. And it was a lot of River Phoenix. It was a lot of like, not just straight up Western, a lot of like, let's mess with like archetypes, like American kind of like, wanderer archetypes, like people who are like heading out west to find something and are like drifting through town. Mm-hmm. So a lot of like playing with those characters and like those images. But then the stylist, Elizabeth, who is amazing, she was like, well, I also found this rental Donny Osmond suit that might fit you perfectly. So do you want to try this on? And I did, and we were like the same. Me and Donny Osmond at one point in his life are the exact same size.
That's pretty incredible. So
yeah.
wait, the suit on the cover, that's the Donny Osmond vibe?
Yeah, the suit and like it's a lot of the promo pictures. It's the orange suit. That was at one point Donny Osmond's. She like rented it from a place in LA or something, which I think is hilarious.
That's amazing. How did his clothes get there? I always wondered that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know. And it probably was a while ago.
Yeah. Well, I would assume.
I'm imagining.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun with just like, I like to transform myself or like see myself as a blank slate sometimes, or like see myself as being able to transform in front of people and like take these references that are floating around in my head and be like, I feel like I can embody that somehow. Even if some like explaining it, someone might be like, I don't see it. I'm like, give me a second. I think I can do this,
Well, it seems like it leaks in with your day to day. I mean, you're wearing what looks like a pinstripe vest right now.
Yeah, I think like Patti Smith is my biggest fashion icon,
Yeah.
Just discovered it's like a foolproof like combination of like, oh, I just wear a big white button down shirt and then everything's okay.
I mean, it's very hard to go wrong with button downs and like anything kind of oversized. I'm kind of air quoting, like a big Oxford or a big pair of pants. I think especially if you're wearing things that were like traditionally assigned to like men or women, and then kind of reinterpreting them where it's like a very, very large pair of pants, which is cinched really tight with an oversized belt that then gets, tightened really tight and then kind of like wrapped into itself. There's this kind of like, is bohemian pejorative? Is that a not good word?
I don't know.
I was going to say like a bohemian vibe. I don't know if that's...
I know.
Nomadic vibe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And like, that's something that kind of unlocked with me too. I think that style and just dressing yourself. I mean, honestly, for me, it was so painful for me for so long. I'd just be like, I don't know what to wear. I don't know how to do this. I felt like a little kid that was trying to dress like an adult. I have a whole thing too, because of my past of like being like a crusty train riding, like vagabond person, that I'm just like, I was feeling very like, how do people do this? I feel like I'm being domesticated and I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something happened in the past couple of years where I was like, it's become a little bit more fun or a little bit less stressful,
What do you think changed? Confidence? Income?
I think confidence for sure.
Okay.
And not even necessarily income, but like I stopped like also shifting more towards stuff that's like traditionally for guys was a huge unlocking for my brain because a lot of clothes for women, like sold towards women, I just think are trash. It's just like made of plastic and it's like so expensive. And it, like the silhouettes just made me feel insane. It gave me like body dysmorphia. I'd be like, why am I shaped like this? I don't want to be, so I think leaning more towards like men's clothes or just stuff that's like simple and, who is a huge inspiration too is Fran Lebowitz. That was like, oh my God, there it is. Like, the cowboy boot with the like men's button down shirt and like jeans. I'm like, you can't go wrong with this cool ass look.
Yeah. Fran wears, her tailor is, Anderson Shepherd. So when you're in London and of Anderson Shepherd, she listens to this.
Hey.
Yeah. Well, we gotta get you linked up with the Anderson Shepherd crew. You can get the classic British, fully structured sort of extended shoulder. That's all Fran Lebowitz. All of her sport coats are Anderson Shepherd.
Yeah, I just learned from like seeing photos of her. Like, oh wait, I think. Kind of like with Patti, it kind of opens a doorway in your brain where you're like, oh, I think I could feel powerful in that. And I can feel comfortable and can feel also like put together. And Yeah, but I'd love that. Because as of now, I'm doing a lot of like, searching thrift stores and like the real. Just, I'm still a little bit like lost in the woods. I don't know. I love when it stops being like that, when there stops being like this suffering around dressing yourself, it just like becomes a part of like, for me, enjoying my time here, and not like denying myself. Like, I mean, I think with grief, a weird thing started happening where I was like, it's really important to me that things smell good. I think because it's like linked with memory so much.
It is. Scent is the most powerful memory trigger. Yeah.
And I've allowed myself like beautiful smells. And I like, when I was in Paris, I went to the Bouli, like perfumery.
Okay.
And it just like having this beautiful French perfume, it, for me, I'm like, wow, it does inform my writing. It makes me feel like I'm worth, this like experience, and makes me feel more like alive and more present.
So scent for me is like the most important thing for my environment at all times.
Cool.
Like it's one of the few things that I could be the most destitute, broke I've ever been, but I will find every penny possible to get the perfume that I wear. Like there's certain candles that we like to have in the house. I mean, this is so embarrassing, but like whatever, that's the point of the show. I've mentioned this before. It is an Italian perfumery, and she does the official scents for the Vatican, and it's very, very, very affordable.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
What?
yeah, it's I don't know how to say it. It's like Essenzialmente Laura.
Well, you
Basically,
gotta
like,
send me that.
Yeah, I will send. It's so good. It's like you can call them or go on their website and order it. And like this is not an ad, but it's like it's just a person. It's not like this Shopify sort of experience. You're like calling them and they're like pronto, and you're like, I'm trying to get, and they're like, oh, English, okay. What do you want? It's
oh my God, this is awesome.
It's so good. They have these diffusers, which is like this oil diffuser, and so we have that upstairs. And then they have this other stuff that smells, one of the Vatican scents, it smells like an old church. I mean, it smells like have you ever been to like a basement where it's like there's a lot of humidity in here and it's old stone, but it smells kind of good? They have that scent.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's so good.
Wow. So interesting. Like when I was a kid, we used to do Christmas Mass. I was like really the only church I ever went to.
Nice. Yeah.
Was like midnight mass. And those smells really stuck with me.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. This is actually a good, somebody who got me really into candles is Brad, the guy who produced this record.
Oh, yeah.
Big into candles.
Okay.
And just like also big into smell too, like his, recording with him, you're going to be smelling like a ton of like wonderful things. And so, yeah, I mean, he got me on the cannabis candles too.
Oh, interesting.
The Malin and Goetz. I don't know how to.
Yeah, it's like people have said like Malin and Goetz. I've heard people say Malin and Getz. I think it's fine. Whatever. Tomato.
Yeah. But the cannabis one is huge for me.
Yeah, it's been nuts where I'm like, why did I just pay $80 for a candle? And then you like light it and you're like, oh yeah, that's why.
Totally. I know. I smelled the pasta water one from
Wait, what?
From
who has
the
pasta
DS and Durga, I think it is.
That's incredible.
And we like this also, not an ad, but everyone in the studio smelled it and we all were like crazy. We love it. What? We never knew. We were all just like giving it like rave reviews.
Yeah, it's funny. I had the DS and Durga, I think it's called portable fireplace. I had it in my car. But here's the thing. You had to hang the air freshener from your rearview mirror. And I'm like, I don't want to drive around my car with a big swinging piece of cardboard.
Totally.
It's like in Beethoven when, what's his face? Charles Grodin runs an air freshener company. And he's like, you just stick it to the visor. But I don't know. I was like super, but I don't know. It smells really good. I think I paid $30 for a car air freshener like an idiot, but I love it. And yeah, I mean, scent is my daughter, every time I go out of town, I go to New York like once a month. We used to live there for a long time. And my wife will give Harriet, my daughter, like one of my shirts, and she'll spray it with my perfume so she can go to sleep because my daughter will be like, Dad's not here or whatever. Yeah. So like it's just in the fam. We're all obsessed with scent. I don't know what the deal is, but it's definitely very memory triggering.
Yeah. Yeah. For me with my dad, like he used to use like Florida water. You know, my dad was like a cool old school, like dude, you know? So a lot of smells like that like were definitely not expensive, you know?
Yeah, it's like drugstore stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like shit that you get at like the Botanica or something that like are a little witchy because we're Puerto Rican. It's like, oh, and this brings money or like whatever, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah.
So I have like those types of smells connected with him.
Yeah, like rose water is a strong one.
Oh yeah.
You could buy those when I lived like in Harlem for a long time, and we would go to this, I guess it was like Puerto Rican, but it was definitely like a Latinx, whatever sort of convenience store. And you could buy these like tubs of like jugs of rose water.
Wow.
Yeah. And I would pour, this is when I was, I don't know what the hell I was doing, but I would pour it in my iron. And so when I ironed my clothes, yeah, well, my grandpa used to do it.
You're next level.
Yeah, you're talking, this is.
I'm taking notes. I like just learned to iron my clothes.
Ironing's fun. It's very, I don't know. It's very cathartic. It's very, and I don't know. It's kind of nice to iron things that take a long time to do something very simple, like take a wrinkle out. And it's like, I just spent a half hour fixing a shirt collar. I don't know. It's like a Zen thing.
For sure.
Yeah. There's weird stuff to it, but I don't know. It's all connected. All this sort of like environmental ambience sort of thing. I don't know. Yeah. That being said, what are some of your favorite albums to listen to, like to put yourself in a good mood? Like you're gonna probably do some driving soon. So what do you have queued up?
Well, I always have like a pump up song with New Order. Age of Consent is like definitely my pump up song.
Okay. Yep.
It always makes me feel like, okay, we're getting ready for the show.
Yeah.
And also Radio Clash by The Clash. The Clash in general make me feel very like, that's like I'm going to go out into the world and I want to feel like, I don't know. I just feel like Joe Strummer will like have my back or something, you know?
Yeah, fair.
And then, of course, for driving, it's like Lucinda Williams is always my go-to. A lot of people that can get lost in the lyrics. So also Kendrick Lamar. Like,
okay,
I just adore him. I just think he's like, obviously he's a genius, but I love getting lost in his lyrics.
How do you, so when you, I sound really stupid saying this, so I'm going to admit it, but like, are you reading his lyrics when you listen along? Because like my brain can't process it that fast.
Yeah, I've noticed that everybody hears different things. Like what's funny for me is like, I hear only lyrics not only, but they'll be like way up in the mix in my mind. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I didn't think about what the beat was doing. Oh. I like won't notice like rhythm really at all, except for in the way that it's being sung or spoken. So yeah, I kind of like see it in my head. I just like hyper focus on lyrics, but sometimes I have like looked up what he said because it'll be really fast.
Yeah. I got into that with Dylan because I never really knew what he was saying. And everyone's like, Dylan's such a good lyricist. And I'm like, well, how do you even understand this? And it like hit me a few years ago to where I literally just bought a book of his lyrics and was like reading along while I was listening.
Oh, totally.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I still want to go to, I think he has a museum now.
I just went.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
I went in Tulsa because we played a gig in Tulsa. Yeah. Which is so like not what you expected, but yeah. We played a gig in Tulsa and it was great. It was through the Dylan Museum.
Okay.
And they let me have a free like tour.
Okay.
And then down the block is the Woody Guthrie Museum. And these two guys were like my guys for a good chunk of my life. Like only thought about Dylan and Woody Guthrie and Neil Young. You know, like that's all I thought about. So going there was so exciting.
What's your Dylan record?
I love Blood on the Tracks. When you were talking about a record that sparks like a time in your life and like shifting, changing, for me, it's Blood on the Tracks. I always feel like it's like fall. It's not a particular moment, but it's like, it always feels like a changing time. And I have like a body memory of taking in that record for the first time.
Yeah. I never put it together. I was reading an interview with Jacob Dylan, Bob Dylan's son, and they were asking him about, which I feel like is kind of dumb, but they were asking about, his dad's music. And they're like, what do you think of Blood on the Tracks? And he's like, it's my parents fighting. And I was like, oh my God.
Ouch. Yeah, he's like, idiot wind. Too close to home.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
And I was like, oh no. I was like, that's
really intense.
But it gave me a total different understanding. Because New Morning is probably my favorite Dylan album.
I love New Morning. Yeah. I love Day of the Locust. I mean, so that's like the thing about Dylan and the Beatles is like, it's really difficult for me to say like my favorite thing because it's just like different chapters of my life. Like Highway 61 took up a lot of my time for a while. And then of course, like the original obsession of like his very folky Greenwich Village revival era was just like so important to me. And I like make a reference to I Was Young When I Left Home, like that's like one of his B-sides on Snake Plant. But I'm definitely a big Dylan head for sure.
Yeah, I gotta go to that museum. I heard there's just some cool stuff.
It's really fun. Yeah. And the Woody Guthrie one rules too.
Have you tried to write lyrics the way some of those dudes did, into which like you just wrote it down with your hand? Or are you like writing lyrics with voice notes or what?
I like to do both. I find that like the voice notes thing just like comes to me like more like easily. But what I'll do, when I like am writing it out, a lot of like phrases come to mind or like definitely titles, like song titles and album titles.
Oh, wow.
Come to me when I'm writing by hand. And that really affects my writing because it's like, I feel like it's like I get a message or it's like the name of it feels like like I have to find a way to get there. So if it'll like shift everything for me. It'll be like, The Past Is Still Alive came to me and then I'm like, what does that mean? How do I get there? And then the rest of the writing, it'll just like linger around and it'll kind of like map me somewhere.
That's great. It's especially considering, I've talked to some musicians and I'll be like, oh, what about this? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, I saw it on a bathroom wall and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of a letdown. You're like, all right, it's fine.
At least like make something up, at least.
Yeah, like when you read that like so many Beatles albums or songs, they're like, I don't know, it just rhymed, like on
or like
yeah.
My favorite is when John was just like, I wanted to sing the same gobbledygook that Dylan was saying. Like he got to say a bunch of nonsense shit. Why can't I?
Yeah.
Just like saying random things that to us are like profound messages.
Yeah, it's like you would be writing a gospel if you didn't realize it, but yeah. Well, Alynda, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
No, I had a great time.
Good. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, you too.
You've been listening to Blamo. Our show is produced by Blamo Media. We're edited by Amar Lowell, and our theme music, as always, by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. If you like what you heard, you know the drill. Share the pod with a friend. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars or thumbs up on whatever other thing you're listening to us on, whether it's Dingledorp or Bing Bong, whatever it's called. But you can also follow us on Instagram for all the hot content. If you want to talk to us and give us your hot take, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email at info@blamopod.com. Last but not least, super ultra important, if I had a air horn, I would press it right now. You got to come and join us over on Patreon, because the fun never stops over there. Look, the live show, the free show, whatever you want to call this, we take breaks here and there, but Patreon, it never stops. And we also got exclusive shows like Die Workwear, hosted by Derek Guy and Peter Zitolo, and the Triple J Show, hosted by yours truly with John Moy and Gene Deleon. There's just a ton of stuff over there. So check it out at patreon.com/Blamo. If not, no worries. We got hundreds and hundreds of free episodes in the feed and more to come. So we will see you all soon.